Good morning. I'm going to talk today about making soup the easy way. In my family, I've always been the soup maker for about the last 30 years, and every year I would have to take hours and hours and hours and hours to chop up all the vegetables and everything to make the soup. Now I make soup using Thrives. We just got through with Thanksgiving, and after Thanksgiving, cooked down the turkey and made vegetable rice soup. Right after that, we cooked the ham, and I took the ham, cooked the bone down, and made delicious split pea soup. Today what we're going to make is we're going to make vegetable beef soup. Now, if I was in an emergency situation, I would be using beef in a can. But today, because we had a prime rib roast, I am going to be cooking down the beef bones that were in the prime rib roast. Then we will be using all of the different vegetables here. We've got onions, celeries, peas, squash, peppers, red and green bell peppers, potato chunks, potatoes diced because I like lots of potatoes, canned roast beef to add a little bit more roast beef to the bones, mushrooms, asparagus, green beans, corn, lima beans, zucchini, broccoli, carrots. We have all the things we need, and we will just dump those in. So right now, what we're going to do is we're going to make a little bit of a change here. We're going to start the bones. So now comes the easy part. We take our bones with the meat on it, and a nice little extra chunk of meat right there. We throw it in the pot. We take the pot over to the sink and fill it up with water. Then we will place it on the stove on low, and we'll let it cook until all the meat is falling off the bones. So at this point, we'll come back to the filming once the meat is cooked. Now we have our meat on the stove. We will cover it, and then about every half hour or so we'll go ahead and we'll take a look at it and see how the bones are doing. Now I won't look at it for at least an hour because I know it's going to take at least an hour or more. And here's the hard part about making soup. I'm going to chop up carrots. I'm going to chop up the celery. I'm going to chop up the squash. I'm going to get the beans out of the pods. I'm going to chop up corn and pull the corn off the cobs. How about the beans? Break up the beans. How about all these other vegetables here? Guess what? I won't have to chop any of them because it's all been done for me. All I will have to do is decide what amounts I want to stick into my soup. It makes it so easy to do. Okay, what I'm going to do next is I don't have to wait for my soup to be ready to get my vegetables ready. So I'm going to start on the vegetables so I can get all these cans out of the way. Now here is onions. Inside every can is one of these packages to keep them dry, so you want to make sure you don't get that in the soup. Onions have a 30-year shelf life, and then once onions are opened, they will last for 2 years. However, around our house, that won't last for 2 years. But I'll just start out by pouring a bunch of onion in until I think it looks right. Like a lot of onion. We won't be using beef bouillon, so we put that away because we have the bones. Celery, same thing. I pull my packets out here. And celery is another thing I like a lot of, so we'll have a lot of celery in there. I want to put the packets back in because there's still a lot in there. The squash, can's not open yet. once I open this can of squash, which lasts 30 years when it's closed, and according to the can, it will last 6 months once it's open. Don't want as much squash, so you just kind of look and you just think about what you chop up. And remember that everything that you put in here is going to increase in size. Peas, I like lots of peas, so not only is that whole can going to go, but I'm going to have to get another can of peas, so I have to remind myself of that. So I'm going to put this can over here, so I know I need more peas. Peppers just for flavoring, so we're going to use a little bit of green pepper probably, and again, no packs. We don't allow packs in our soup. That's probably good for the green peppers. And then the red and green bell peppers. We'll just use, again, a little of this for flavoring. Probably about like that. Again, I do everything by sight. And here we have potato chunks. Those are little square chunks of potatoes. They're always nice in a soup. Now we won't add our meat yet because we'll wait and see how much meat we have over there. But now this is diced potatoes. I like to have a little bit of both kinds of potato in there because it just makes it interesting. They're just a little different size. Packet, get the packet out of there. And of course, what is vegetable soup without mushrooms? So we'll put our mushrooms in. And I like asparagus. Now the can of asparagus, again, this one has a 25-year shelf life and good for 1 year after the can is open. So there we go, we throw in a little asparagus. Put the lid back on here. And now we have our green beans. This can's almost empty, so we'll dump that can. And we have another can right behind it here. And we'll put a few more green beans in. Now we're going to add our corn. Packet. Always got to watch the packets. Don't want packets in there. Now I won't use the lima beans either because they take longer to do than the vegetables, so we'll soak them later. Zucchini. And we need another can of zucchini because there was hardly any in that can, so we open up a can of zucchini. Zucchini on the back of the can says a 30-year shelf life and good for 1 year after open. So there we go, we got our zucchini. Broccoli. Add our broccoli. And add our carrots. Then at that point, what I do is I just kind of like mix this stuff all up and see what it looks like and see if I'm happy with it. And again, I am very happy with it. The only thing it needs is more peas, and so I will add a few more peas to it before I put it in the pot. And that finishes this section of the cooking. So here we are at 1.5 hours, and we're going to look at our meat. We know it's not done, but we just kind of want to look at it. And we can see our bones there. And the meat on it is going to be, we'll probably set it for another 1.5 hours and then take a look at it then. It's looking really good. Okay, so here we are 1.5 hours later, and now we can see the meat is falling off the bones, which is what we want. They're still on there, but they're really getting ready. You can see we have this really nice broth made up. So at this point, what I'm going to do is put the lid back on it and let it boil for another hour and a half and see what goes on from there. Okay, so here we are, another hour and a half, and we can see that our bones now are, the meat is literally falling off the bones. But at this point, what I'm going to do, I'm going to add garlic now. You never can have too much garlic. And I still want to cook those bones down more because I believe there's healing in the bones, and this is good organic beef. So we're going to add about 1, 2, 3, and one more for good luck. Things of garlic, and finish off our cooking of the ribs with a little garlic in there. And we'll come back again in an hour and a half. Okay, well here we are. 3 minutes left before our timer goes off. But I know everything is going to be just perfect this time after looking at it last time. So as we look in here and pull a bone, we can just see that these bones are completely cooked. So now we're going to find the bone. There's one. See how those bones look? They are completely cooked down exactly the way they were supposed to be. And we need to find 4 of them. I got a little bit of meat with that one. I'm going to take the meat back later. We can take it back now. Boy, look at that bone. See? Perfect, perfect, perfect. Just what you want. Because again, healing is in the bone. That's part of what makes homemade soup so good, is the fact that we have all of that good marrow and everything in the stew. Then the next thing I like to do is go ahead and scoop the fat off the top, which is really easy to do with a spoon with holes in the bottom of it. Just run it around a few times and there you go. We have the excess fat off the top. Okay, the next thing that we're going to do here is we're going to take some of this nice broth and liquid out of this pan before we throw our vegetables in. Otherwise, we very easily could overflow our pan. And don't forget that all of our vegetables are freeze-dried, so they are going to suck up a lot of liquid. So I think that's pretty good right there. We'll just do that right there. And then you remember we put our vegetables together in the pan here. We'll now dump all of our vegetables into the pot. Oh boy, we really made that just about right, didn't we? I can also tell that there wasn't quite enough roast beef in there after I'm through, so I'm going to throw in a little extra beef right there. And now we're just going to slowly put these vegetables right down into that juice, and it will start sucking that juice up. Then the next thing we'll do from there is we will start spicing our soup. Now, Thrives does put out lots of really good spices. However, I have those in my emergency food, and I will use the spices that we have around the house here. So here we go. Now we're just going to let this these vegetables sit in here and soak until they soak this liquid up for a while, and then we'll come back.
Go.
As you can see now, it's soaked up most of our juice. So now it is time to add the rest of the liquid that we made. And can you believe how perfect we did this? I'm always awed at when this comes out just right. I mean, look at this. Right at the top of the pot. Any more we would have too much. So at this point we're going to let it soak a little bit more. Then we will come back and we will start spicing it. Now here's the part where my wife always laughs at me. She says I can never ever make soup that fits in one pot. And she's already right. We have a full pot and we still have a couple things we have to add to it, so I'm going to have to split this pot. One of the things that I'm going to do right now is I will taste it. And now I decide from that taste what type of spices. Now, if you remember, we put a lot of garlic in there to start with, but I can tell you right now, it's missing garlic. So I'm going to take 3 more big tablespoons of garlic and put it in there. Now, you can use the Thrive's tomatoes. Personally, when I have the opportunity, I like to use Mirror Glens, and I like to mix it. I like to put 1 roasted garlic and 2 fire roasted with green chilies. And as we can see now, we mix that in. We're going to add salt, sea salt, the only kind of salt we use. I'm going to add some pepper. Again, we know we'll be back doing this again, but we're just going to start out with what looks good to us. Those of you that cook for a long time, you know that's how you do it. I'm going to put a little bit of lemongrass in. Bay leaves. I like to just take the bay leaves and crunch them up and put them in. And we go get our own bay leaves, even though that's in a bay leaf can. We have bay leaf trees around here, and so we go get our own bay leaves. We also cook with a lot of our own sage. Put a little sage in. A little oregano. And then some powdered garlic. There is a difference between the flavor of the 2 garlics. So there is our first set of seasonings. We will mix this all in really good. And then at that point, I'm going to be removing a pan full of the soup to start with, and then work with it from there. So that's it for this portion. Okay, we pulled out a little bit more now, and so we will taste it and see how it tastes. My wife tasted it also, and we both agree that it needs a little more green. So we're going to add a couple more bay leaves to it. We're going to add a little more sage to it. It does need more black pepper. And at this point, it's got a nice hot flavor, so it needs the ground garlic, not the fresh garlic. And we're probably going to be at the most perfect spot for it. We'll come back and check it a little bit later. Well, look at that beautiful, yummy soup. So easy, didn't have to cut any of it up. Just used the freeze-dried, and it has turned out absolutely fantastic. The only thing left to do is stick it in the jar. I like to use a canning funnel when filling my jars with soup. And one thing to remember when you're filling the jars with soup too, we freeze them. So you don't want to fill the jar all the way to the top. You want to leave a little bit of room, and I'll show you just how I do that. Right about at the bottom of the container there, so there is about that much room in the jar, is where we will fill the rest of these jars. Then we will lid them, and they're hot. And then what we do is we move them out to, our freezer is out in the garage, but tonight they'll sit on the washing machine out in the garage, and you'll hear the seals of the lids seal themselves down. Diane will write what type of soup it is and what day the soup was made. And as I had said earlier, we already have split pea and ham, and we have a turkey and rice and vegetable soup. We'll now have a vegetable beef soup. We have chili beans, and we have spaghetti already made. So we have several nights of food, which also keeps us from having to go out and eat at a restaurant or something when we're very busy. And it is just so much better for you. Just rich, delicious soup. Well, there they are, all packaged up. We ended up getting 13 quarts of soup plus a pan full to try out tomorrow. Okay, so here we go. Time to try it. Absolutely delicious.